I'm Luther Kruger. I'm with the Big Blue Sun Museum of Solar Cooking in Minneapolis, and I'm here with Gordy Bishop in Barstow, California. Sunny Barstow. Perfect day for solar cooking. Just a little light breeze to keep us from getting too hot. And the reason I checked in with Gordy is all of his posts on the Solar Cooking Worldwide Facebook. It was clear that he's more than just your average now and again solar cooker, and he's definitely into more than one kind of cooker, and I wanted to find out what he has going here. So I got, the first question always is, how did you get into solar cooking? Where was the first time where you said, okay, I got to start cooking with solar?
I've been working at the solar plants since '86. So I was heating up with oil, solar thermal wise, but it still took about 15 years before I got around to thinking about cooking with it. And one of the things that in my head is we had insulators working at the power plant, and they were cooking their lunch on the hot pipes that we were making with solar. And it dawned on me, they're solar cooking in the middle of the power block in the shade, but they're solar cooking. And that got me turned on to it. And then I came across these tubes online, and I bought them. And as I was sharing them, a friend, Lynn, who runs Solar Thermal Day, a utility thing, sent me the link to the Soul Source Kickstarter. So that was my second solar cooker. And then from then on, it just
snowballed.
Yes, it snowballed.
You have what we've often referred to on that Facebook, solaritis or solarosis. It's a disease that cannot be cured, and we don't want to be cured of it.
Yeah.
It's too much fun.
So yeah, since then I backed all of Soul Source, and I backed all of GoSuns, and I bought a lot of other ones. And I'm so happy you brought the one from France.
Yes, the Simplicity. It's one of the best portable ones out there. But the Soul Source, this one, a lot of big fans of it. Power out the kazoo. I mean, really. Yeah. Really easy to use. My wife likes it because of the notch in the back, and we'll go over and do a little more closer camera work with it in a little bit. And I actually got to focus on the sausages when they're first cooking, so we're good with that. So how many cookers do you have, and how many of each type?
Well, I got these 2 tube cookers from a guy in Seattle that's now retired. I got that dish. I have the metal dish. I don't know who made it. It's like tin metal, and they use reflective tape on it. I got that in the patio hanging up. It's about the same size as the Soul Source. And I just thought that was just a great idea, because you can't break it. Yeah. You know, if you were in a bad area and you get shot, all you got's a gunshot in it. It's me.
Keep over it.
Yeah, and I love that design. Its adjustment really sucks though. And I have a couple other ones I haven't unboxed yet, sadly. I got extra tubes. I don't have any box cookers per se. I just haven't did that yet. I haven't built a good box. I haven't bought one, but haven't built one. I got a lot of designs in my head for medium to big size cookers, as I showed you in the back.
Yes, that's a mega cooker.
Yeah, this is a baby dish here. That was a 10-foot dish back there. But yeah, I got a lot of ideas, and I would buy cookers not really to use them as much as to see how they work and see the weak points and stuff, and like, okay, this could be improved this way, this could be improved that way, and that's the kind of thing I like. That my self-research and I have all these ideas, and hopefully one day I'll spit some of them out.
Sure.
But then I like these cookers. You put them out, it's much harder to burn in these type of cookers. I have burned stuff in tubes, but again, it's a lot harder to do that. So that part I like. cooking, and I got too many to show you the time we got.
It's okay.
Which I'm sure you got to your house too.
I have cookers I forgot I had. I mean, well, now did you build these from a plant, or did they come like this? You bought them as is, or
The one guy sold the tube, and he had another guy that built the frame.
okay?
And you would tell him what color you wanted it and the fabric on the outside. He would
Oh my goodness.
you would go to Walmart and say, find the barcode of what you want at Walmart, and you would find the fabric, and he would custom build the color in that for that reason.
Sure.
And I've added stuff to it. I had to add the temperature probe, and I added some magnets to keep it closed sometimes, and some Velcro to try to keep it closed. And again, I got a lot of good ideas to improve it,
Sure.
to tear it apart. But these, as I was saying, thousands of hours of solar cooking, because on a day like today, I'm just cooking and cooking.
Yes.
Or like solar roast coffee like we had
Yes.
for breakfast today. I just solar roast the coffee and cook. And I was working a lot back then too, so I didn't have too many days off. Too many days off I was awake because I was a shift worker. And then too many days that were sunny.
Yeah.
So when it was sunny, I was cooking.
Sure.
I was cooking a lot of things. And like I said, all the videos I have are posted on Facebook of everything I've cooked in the tubes and the dish, from pies, full-size pies, to cakes. Pineapple upside down cake was one of my favorite in here.
Yes. Oh, wow.
And my sister's here. We cooked cinnamon pie and shoe fly pie. That made me so happy to do that, because that's my mom and dad used to cook those. And I was able to cook it solar. I cooked stuffed chilies that I'm kind of famous for. People really like stuffed jalapenos. I was able to cook that. That made me happy. And then, of course, the prime rib dinner in there. So that kind of stuff is, yeah, it kind of normalizes it, because some people say, oh, all you can cook is this or that. But, I'm still working on a way to cook cotton candy. I'm going to work on that.
Well, we were talking earlier before we came on camera about Sarah Helmerson and hers. And when I met her at the conference, I cornered her because I wanted to come up with a list of the difficult dishes for solar cooking. It ended up being the difficult dishes to do anyway, like souffles, which I have done, and it's not that hard. They'll collapse if you don't do it quite right, whether you do it in the solar or the other. And we came up with about a dozen, but I had not even thought cotton candy. Sarah, we're gonna have cotton candy. We're gonna have to do cotton candy now. Yeah. Well, you know what might be perfect for that would be that Ivan Yaholnitsky's that big trough cooker, because when you go to the fair and you see them, they're doing the spindly thing. Maybe just doing it. Can you do it horizontal? I don't know. We'll work on it.
Yeah, well, or maybe a dish with a reflector dish, so it's heating up on the bottom.
Yeah.
And having it there. Yeah, I've thought about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like none of the thoughts have went through to even thinking about saying it out loud.
Well, that is now officially on the challenge, the solar cooking challenge list. I'm glad you brought that up.
I will pay $50 to the first person to make cotton candy.
That's it. You'll get it on that paper cone.
The Gordy cup.
The Gordy cup. Well, now describe this one. How did you come up with it? Did you do it yourself? And obviously, there's the Sharon Clausen's Copenhagen, which is universally acclaimed.
Yeah, this is Sharon's. And of course, it's Jar and Jar, which again is one of my favorite pastimes of going to the store, shopping for jars instead of food, to see what jar fits in the jar. But of course, you want to cook the biggest jar you can, so you don't waste your time or a good sunny day. So in this one, inside is a 3/4 gallon pickle jar. And then I got this 3 gallon cookie jar. And I've tried doing stuff like, you can kind of see where it's scraped on here to try to keep the condensation down.
Sure.
But it's a good sign to show you that it's cooking. But there's condensation, so what I did was, I don't know if it was off of eBay or the Amazon place, I got a silicone thing to hold.
Oh, sure.
And below there is a rack.
Yep.
Like a cake rack that fits inside. So it's not airtight. So any moisture, if it does fall down, hopefully it'll evaporate out.
Sure.
Without letting any cold air in. And that's it. In this one we have beans of white beans, black-eyed peas, and pink beans.
Wow, all together in one thing.
Yeah, the cornucopia beans in this one.
Sure.
And then I have one of our other solar cookers over there that's not in a jar, covered in a jar, with the same amount of beans cooking.
Well, now, and I'm thinking like you now, and thinking what more can be done here, and I'm thinking a glass pie pan here, so that the reflection comes with my hand, and I'm already feeling it. I'm going to grab the burning, and just to get a little bit that's still shadow here. I wonder if that wouldn't, that way a little bit more of the light would get up into the jar, into the cooker.
Oh yeah, that'd be
good. But that's ingenious, because trapping the moisture and it doesn't go like because she's got the wood.
Oh yeah, I've got this like I say, I've had this and I've got it very wet for a very long time.
Sure.
It's definitely used.
Yeah, and I've seen there's 2 or 3 other people that do jar and jar, and it's totally effective, and and especially when you're doing the slow cook, the beans and rice and so forth. In Joe Radabau's book, Heaven's Flame, that's what I should write. Do you have the Joe's book? Okay, we'll send you one. I got extras at home, seriously.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he talks about cooking in his box cooker that he made himself, designed himself, where he loved canning jars, because he'd put, a cup of rice, cup and a half, 2 cups of water, put it in there, and you just leave the glass clear, or you can paint it black except for a strip down the side.
That's what most of mine are.
Yeah, and then you can see, as soon as the water is pretty much, you can see the air gaps between the rice. It's done. Air gaps between the beans, they're done. In terms of, is it got to be X temperature for how many minutes?
That's what I like about this.
Yeah,
because it's hard to burn, and if you get busy and you forget about it, it probably won't burn.
Yep. And
also, what I like about it is the best thing I ever did in it was wild rice. Oh, that was so good.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
I just wild rice with some bouillon cube for flavoring, and that was
we'll
beautiful.
mix wild rice with like basmati or one of the other rices all in one thing, and about half and half, or a little bit more wild rice proportion. It's just it's the best.
And then I did the turn sweetened condensed milk in the caramel using this.
I remember that.
Yeah. This is what I used for that.
Sure.
I had to make a basket holder so I wouldn't have to dig down to get the thing out.
Sure.
And in fact, Mike over there helped me with that, try to do the video. Roasted the coffee beans in the tubes, and that took about 20-30 minutes.
And you get just the green raw beans from?
Yeah, I got the green raw beans.
Okay. Wow.
and cook them in there. So I like my tubes. We've been together
Sure.
a long time.
Yeah.
I like these for the beans and the rice.
Sure.
And then when I'm cooking stuff that takes higher temp, like what we're doing today,
Yep.
then out comes the Soul Source
Sure.
because that one again you can get too hot.
Yep.
It's much easier to get the heat off than to add more heat if you need it.
Sure.
So, but yeah, these are my favorites.
Yeah.
Today we already cooked brownies in the tubes.
Yes.
And now we're heating up some spaghetti, some garlic bread because we're going to make some spaghetti.
Yep.
And we're cooking bacon and sausage.
Now I'm seeing
In
some
the sauce.
meatballs there.
And we're going to cook
tucked away.
meatballs for our spaghetti. We're going to use the Soul Source for the meatballs.
Sure.
I got the pan for that. I call it my meatball pan, but it's the pan used for like pastry balls in like Belgium or something.
Okay. But thanks so much. This is fantastic. I mean, I think you're probably one of the few people I know that literally every day it's sunny, you're thinking, what can I cook? All righty. Well, thanks again.
I call it an HC tube. This manufacturer out of China might call it something different, but we always call them heat collection element tubes. They're basically a metal tube on the inside with a glass tube on the outside. On the ends is a bellows because glass doesn't expand as fast as metal. So as the metal expands, the bellows on the end absorb the difference, the delta of the expansion. This tube under a vacuum, hence its insulation capabilities. And over here, these will start turning white, so you can look at it and see that it lost vacuum. Or you can just use a temperature gun, and if you can't touch the glass because it's hot, like at our solar plants when we were at 600 degrees, you lost vacuum. But these tell that one. This designer has this over here where they were going to, if you lost vacuum, you cut this. This is like a valve, I think a magnetic valve, that you open up, suck a vacuum again, and then reseal that in place. So you don't have to cut these out. These are welded in.
Wow.
I bring this up because I wish our tube cookers were like these. Because you can't get away from the tube cookers having glass on the outside. Because you need that vacuum seal to keep the heat in. But on the inside, you don't have to have glass. You can use the metal because that's the where a lot of breakage happens. You get micro cracks from using metal, ceramic, and other cooking utensils, or your tray you slide in and out, that it will break, it will crack, cause micro cracks, will lead to breakage, or even if it doesn't break, you'll lose vacuum. So this technology has been around for 4 years. This is what we used in the solar plants back in the 80s. And so we don't have to invent anything new. In this case, we don't have to get some of the fancy indicator or re-vacuum. All we need to do is change the size of the dies in the factory. Make bigger tube, bigger glass tube. You shorten this up, of course.
Sure.
This is a half size of an actual one. The ones we use at our plants were 13 feet long. But this would be the tube I wish to make. But 8 inches, 6 to 8 inches inside diameter,
Sure.
and 2 or 3 feet long, with our bellows, the vacuum, and everything. And this glass is really sturdy though, because I've hit my head on this glass many times, and it never broke. In the past, because they're so long, if you heated up the tube by valving it in with hot oil or not having enough flow, the tube course, being metal, would warp, and that would break the glass. When these were first made, the distance between the glass and the metal were so small that any little breakage, any little bowing would break them. As you see, this tube has almost an inch and a half gap in it. So if there's a little bit of bowing on it, it won't break.
Sure.
And again, this, I haven't used this to cook yet. This was from a conference in Vegas, and I was able to still it before they threw it away, because this particular brand came from China, but I haven't set this out, so I'm not sure if they built it up to specs with a good vacuum in it, or what's inside. So it's the first time it's been out in the sun actually this long.
Sure.
And I wanted, in fact, it feels cool. It feels cooler than when we took off the cover, so that's a good sign. And anyway, this is my idea of, you just need something shorter and bigger, and we'll have a better tube.
The metal. And this one, one question I have is, because we got the jar in jar where there's no vacuum, but that heat trap helps. Even without a vacuum, maybe something like this.
Without a vacuum.
Yeah, especially if you have the parabolic trough, right?
Yeah.
Reflector. Yeah.
Yeah, if you had a reflector. We experimented at the solar plants with NREL and Sandia, many different things. There was one company, who I forget now, they made halves. So when the tube would break, you had a hole, again, twice as long, 2 shells, called the clam shells, to put over the tube again. So you didn't have to cut it out to get that wind protection. And again, the wind protection is good for production. It's also good so you don't lose heat in the winter time and at night.
Sure.
And stuff. And yeah, exactly. Even if it's not under a vacuum, it does wonders. And again, we just got to change the size of the dies at the factory. And all the technology's been with us for 40 years. But that's my idea, my hope and dream.
Sure.
That we can get to the point of a good tube like this.
When for creating the vacuum, if it does lose the vacuum, what is it? Is it a vacuum cleaner, or what can you say? You'd have to have something a little more power than that, right? Or
well, when it comes to vacuum pumps, it's a volume thing, i.e. how much air can you suck out, and then it's a seal thing, how much can you get down to as it's sucking out, as opposed to any leaks you might have. To me, it might, like I said, it might not be worth it. Like if you did build one with a vacuum and it leaked, but it's still good, it'd probably still be good.
Sure.
It would still be good. So.
Well, then that would beg the question whether it would even need to be actual glass, even if it's tempered and strengthened. Probably it's more vulnerable than if it were like polycarbonate, like a Lexan or something. Because I don't know. I'm just thinking future too.
Would the Lexan withhold like a focal point? I don't know how much that would.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure about that. Another idea, I was at Walmart. I've seen it online too. There's big flower bases. They're like this big, this long, it's really thick and sturdy. I'm thinking if I just get a metal tube, stick it in there, and make something to seal it up against, keep the wind out, and have a spacer to keep it centered. Right there.
Yeah.
And again, will that glass space not overheat? I don't know. I haven't got around to making that yet.
Sure.
But again, it keeps the wind off.
Yep.
And you can really put a lot of heat on it, on that metal tube, because like you can't really put a lot of heat on the vacuum glass or glass tube without focal point being really tight, maybe.
Sure.
And that might be an issue. But if you have that metal tube in there, like I said, these tubes from our plants, it's 72-to-1 ratio to almost 100. Some of them, these tubes, the metal tubes, can withstand it. If you have that metal tube, even if it's not in a vacuum, once you start heating up that tube, and if you have a vent, let's say don't have a vacuum, but you gotta have a vent, because moisture will get in and out of there. Moisture's in there if you have air.
Yeah.
You want the air to dissipate. Because it's got sucked in, it might have sucked in moisture. You want it to be able to dissipate and not blow up on you. So just have a vent on there, but you can get that metal tube really hot and cook better, cook hotter, cook faster. You know, people, oh, it's too hot. It's like, cook it faster, cook it different, change your recipe, put less moisture in it so it doesn't have to cook as long.
Mm-hmm.
One of the best tricks I learned lately was people used vodka in their pie crust because the alcohol in the vodka would evaporate quicker than the water to make a flakier crust quicker. That's another way of solar cooking.
Sure.
We discussed was change your recipe.
Yeah.
For what you're doing.
Yep.
These brownies, which we haven't tested yet, I put less water but more egg. Just to see if that helps.
Sure.
And mess around with it. In fact, most of my recipes I try to cook in a normal kitchen because if they don't work, then I know it's something I did solar cooking and not something wrong with the recipe.
Sure.
I always try to experiment that way.
Yep.
But this is the tube, and again, any way to block the wind. That's the wind is the killer of solar cooking.
There's always something new coming down. Like I say, when I saw Ivan Yahovnitsky's,
Oh yeah,
that's like there's a whole order of magnitude because he can put 5, 6 pretty much standard size loaves of bread in there, and that's just
bigger, better.
It's actually a sandwich 2 layers of aluminum because when they just did one, they found out after a year's cooking, it just the stress of expansion contraction, it would crack. But for some reason, the 2 of them together somehow
It dissipates.
it dissipated, it evened it out, and that it just lasts longer, but without sacrificing heat. So
another thing with the tube inside is for our solar plants, we want it as thin as possible. Our pumps put out like 450, 500 pounds.
Sure.
So we don't have to worry about pressure. So the types of metal used in these tubes, as you see, it's pretty thin walled. Maybe you can take a picture.
So like a 1/8 of an inch maybe, or
Oh yeah, and it's usually stainless steel.
Yeah.
And another design with this would be aluminum or copper, a metal that would dissipate the heat all around it. So if you have a focal point coming from your reflectors, it will still dissipate. So you're not just you're heating the metal all the way around, not just convectionally with the air in the tube. And so that would be another, maybe have different layers of aluminum and copper. Well, copper on the inside because it helps keep things stirring per se.
Sure.
You'll keep any germs. Maybe that's the most inside layer.
Yep.
The tube set out about half the day in the sun. Both ends are wide open, not plugged up. The temperature of the glass, temperature of a piece of wood painted dark, and the temperature of the tube inside. And it's all with the tube wide open. Just took the foil off the end. There's foil on the other end. Seeing what temperature we got here. Today we're lucky, no clouds. If you're cooking in a tube, it's good because it keeps the heat in when a cloud comes by. But also what keeps the heat in is a metal. So you have the trade-off of it might take longer to warm up, but it'll also coast through a cloud longer.
Yes.
Or at the end of the day, go longer. And again, if you have a big tube that can really take the heat, you can put a lot more reflector on it and always cut back the reflector once you heat it up.
Sure.
And cover it up with a towel.